Hello, welcome to Club IDIC. Today, we will be watching Scorpion from Star Trek Voyager and discussing meeting a new member of the family. Please enjoy this meeting. Hey, you. How you feeling?
Thank you. Hey, Heather, how are you?
I'm a bit tired. I myself am a little unwell today, but how are you?
Sorry.
Ah,
Okay, I guess. Physical therapy just left. I didn't get much done, but I did walk to the door and back.
you're looking better.
I have my moments.
You're looking better, looking stronger.
Some of that is mental because, my son left me and I'm just like, you know what? It's better because he's not being a jerk to me anymore. So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it is what it is. Someday he'll regret the way he acted.
And I can say this from experience. Family members deal with illnesses in their own way, and some are jerky and some are not.
This has nothing to do with illness. He's just, oh no. That's okay. Someday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
But it's good to see you.
yeah. Is anybody else gonna come this time?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I hope so too. You know, it's hard getting people together these days. Oh,
Yeah,
here's somebody.
Ooh. Thank you.
Hello.
How are you?
There's our wild warrior.
How did that become my name?
I don't know. That's what I get when I look at you.
Well, thank you. I take that as a high compliment.
Hey, sounds good to me.
You're both wild warriors.
Oh, sorry, I'm digging around here.
And speaking of wild warriors, this is a good episode because it talks about wild warriors. I mean, believe it or not, the Borg are wild warriors. They may not, they may not do things the right way. They're wild warriors. They run all over the bloody galaxy. They're wild.
I remember watching this episode for the first time when it aired and just thinking how terrifying it was. But I didn't want to show that I was scared because I was the only young person in a room full of adults, so I couldn't be showing any fear. But they are kind of scary.
You know what? It's okay to show fear when you have it. Otherwise, you're not being authentic. And I think we need to be authentic about how we feel about things because otherwise we're being fake and there's no room in this world for fake.
The world's got enough fake, that's for sure.
Agree 1000%. Did you just, Teresa, call the Borg a little scary?
No.
I'm terribly sorry. I fight, as we all do, the distraction battle. So please restate what you said if you don't mind.
I was talking about the species 8472, how scary they were. But I didn't want to show that I was scared.
Yeah, well, they're even scarier than the Borg, which is saying something for sure. And I'm a little surprised. So remind me, do you guys, I feel like the answer is no, but just so I'm clear, are you guys Picard watchers?
I sort of have. I was preparing for the Shakespeare play that I was in recently when season 2 came out, and I just was so into it. I had 5 roles. Remember, I have mentioned this that I just I had 5 roles in one
I
play.
wasn't around. I wasn't around for your mentioning that, but go ahead.
I had 5 roles in one play, by the way.
Okay, very good.
I was just so insanely involved in that I just kind of let everything else fall to the wayside until the play was over. So I've got it on my PVR. I haven't watched it yet.
I understand how that can happen. No worries.
I watched the first episode, not all the way through.
Mhm.
It just didn't. It wasn't for me.
I'm a huge, huge Picard fan.
I thought I would be.
Well, so here's what I love about season 2, especially, is that they are examining trauma and its long-lasting effects. I can talk about this without spoiling things.
I'm not giving you a look for that. I've heard enough spoilers that I'm kind of a little mad about how they mocked it a bit.
Oh, I wasn't responding to a look on your part. I just was responding to my own thought in my head to be clear that, like, I can talk about it in a way, I believe I can, that won't spoil anything. So they are examining the long-term effects of trauma on a person. And I think that is an under-examined thing in our society, or under-known thing. So I really appreciate how they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting to see. Star Trek has had so many opportunities to really explore that and let it go by. Scorpion being one of those, just, Harry Kim and things that happened to him throughout the series. But Miles O'Brien in Deep Space Nine, the episode Hard Time. I
my
was
gosh.
just talking about that with somebody in another Star Trek Facebook group. And, they didn't explore that. Dr. Bashir stopped O'Brien from committing suicide, but then it just went away. And it was never.
Hard Time, is that the episode where he thinks he's in prison the whole time?
Yes.
For 20 years, yes.
That is one of the things that bothers me the most about bottle shows, episodic television, because and Deep Space Nine is not the only series in which this happened, where something's introduced, a person, an element, something comes in that's brand new in that, from the whole series, in that episode, and then you never hear about it again, and you're like,
it just,
how is that now no longer a thing? It bugs me.
That life changing.
Mm-hmm.
How did he go from holding a phaser to his head to,
the next episode, he's okay. No problems. No flashbacks.
Let's go to the holosuite, or let's go play darts, or let's go, but it's never mentioned again. But O'Brien went through not just that, but other things, lots of things that were traumatizing events.
Yeah.
They never get mentioned again. Then you think about, Kim was done that way in Voyager quite a bit as well. And nothing is ever mentioned. And then when 7 of 9 comes along, her whole Borg experience, that's got to be traumatic.
Well,
especially when her memory started.
It is mentioned because that's why she joins Fenris and she loses Ichev, and it's addressed in Picard a little bit. I will say that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was addressed a little bit too in Voyager, because they did that episode, The Raven, where they went back to discover how she was assimilated. I'm usually bad about remembering episode names, but for some reason I remember that one.
I think they did better in Voyager with 7 of 9, which is probably why I didn't dislike her character, because they did at least acknowledge that that was a thing.
Yeah, and just for the record, we are going to be watching Hard Time next month. I remember to put it in.
I saw. I think that's what started like my whole going down that thought process. Which, to be honest, the last probably 5 or 6 times I've watched through the series, I have skipped. So I do have to go back and actually watch it.
Yeah.
Because
But
I do.
for-
I mean, I remember it a lot, but I feel like I should probably like rewatch it. But it's hard for me because, well, like I said, because it just drops off like nothing ever.
Well, maybe that's why he
happened
took a
really
job on
quickly.
Earth eventually, because after the war, he was like, oh, I'm tired of this station. I'm tired of everything. I'm just tired of, I want to go back to Earth where it's familiar and recover.
You know, but I don't even think that O'Brien was thinking that way. I think he was thinking more along the lines that his wife and children deserved a more quote unquote normal, because I mean, they went through the Dominion War
Yeah.
really close to the front lines. And even though he had sent them to Earth for a while, and he sent, and they spent some of that time on Bajor, which personally, if I was O'Brien, I would have had them on Bajor because they had the protection of being a quote unquote ally of the Dominion and should have been safer there even than on Earth because the Dominion had already attacked Earth. And they were still close enough that he could have visited and stayed in contact a little bit better. But I do think it was more the, it's time to get my family away from the front of everything.
Yeah. I was
But
just telling Teresa that we are going to be watching Hard Time, by the way.
Mhm.
I did put it on the schedule for
Okay.
next month.
That's cool.
Because it is a favorite, and I think she requested another episode from Deep Space Nine. Was it By Inferno's Light or something like that?
that one wasn't me, but hey, I wouldn't complain.
I think that's the one where they escape the internment camp and Garrick has to crawl in the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to do Far Beyond the Stars.
We did it.
Oh, you did?
We did it in February.
Well, maybe I can go back and watch it.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should put a poll up and we can revisit some things in summer.
I think we should do more new episodes before we start revisiting ones we've already done.
Yeah.
I wasn't here for Far Beyond the Stars, but that's okay.
Well, the discussion's it's available.
Right?
I just felt February was the most appropriate time for that.
How does that relate?
Well, it's
Black
diversity
History Month.
month.
Oh, right.
So
Is that what it's called now instead of Black History Month? Genuine question.
no, I named it Diversity Month for the club, and
Oh, okay. Clearly, I'm spotty in my attendance and attention.
I'm spotty in a lot of things. Spotty together.
Yep, we're spotty together.
Yeah. So yeah, Scorpion, it addresses trauma, and there's a lot of different episodes in Star Trek that actually address trauma, but it's not explored as lot as it should be. Like even Julian gets a moment in The Sun about his trauma, and Garrick gets a moment about, because they talk about his claustrophobia even a bit. Like, when he's in the camp and he has to crawl through the things, he has moments of the claustrophobia, but they don't really explore it once he gets out of the camp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm drawing a blank when when Bashir and Jake Sisko end up and Jake is writing his article that he was supposed to be writing about Dr. Bashir, but he ended up writing about what fear really was and the fine line between fear and courage.
Mhm.
I really like that because, you know, that was a very traumatic experience as well. I mean, Jake was only 18 and he went from, and he even mentioned in the episode, you know, he had been on the station lots of times and the station was under attack or, you know, fleet, or there was a battle outside the station or whatever. And he never felt as scared and as terrified as he did on the front lines. And he said he didn't know if it was because of the fact that he was seeing the damage that the Klingons were doing to people up close and personal, or if it was because he wasn't with his father because he always had his dad there as protection. But when they're reading through the article and they're kind of going through the sequence of events, they kind of give a little bit deeper of an understanding what it's like to face the drama as it's going. But, you know, we never have a real, hey, a flashback to what was happening. They did do better with Nog because he did have some flashbacks to what happened when he got shot. They did have some flashbacks to those events that were leading up to that. So I think they did better. They would have probably done a lot better if they had more time to address it.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's something important enough to take a little bit of time and just have those moments where,
And yeah, Worf got the most time to like kind of live out the trauma of losing his wife, I think, in the last season, because he had reminders the whole season, basically.
this is true.
Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
I was gonna say I do hate it when you see the traumatic impact in tiny little moments in the same episode that the traumatic thing happened, and then, as we've said before, next episode they're fine and you never hear about it again. That is not how trauma works. I
No.
probably don't have to tell both of you that. So
No,
I mean,
no.
I don't know your story, Teresa. I'm just saying you
Well,
know.
no, I mean it only makes sense, but you know, you think about O'Brien, for example. He was at that point. I mean, he was sitting there with the phase, and like, this wasn't a thought, this wasn't a suicidal thought, this was a plan
Yeah.
in action.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about all of the things that happened after that, it never popped into his head again. We never see a moment where he's like, you know, he has to go and confide to Julian that he's, you know, having a moment, or where he's drinking just a little bit too much to try to cope. You never see those struggle moments, and I think it would have helped be a little more realistic and drive that point home. Even if you just saw him, he spent a year as a bachelor. If he had spent one of those nights and you saw the evidence of him sitting there and drinking and brooding over what was going on, because you know these things had to have happened. And I think seeing a visual of that, when he talked to I lost her name, the sound of her voice, when they were talking to her, he really opened up and he really talked about some of the trauma and some of the ways that he had felt like he pulled away from his friends, and he felt like they pulled away as well because of the war and just the heaviness of it. And I felt like, you know, a few more things that kind of tied that in together, because, you know, O'Brien was not the only one that was feeling the effects. You could see it. They did at least show some of the times when Cisco reminded us they're not just names. They represent people, and we had a few moments of that, especially in the pale moonlight. You got some moments from Dax, you got some moments from Cisco. But I do think that it would be nice to address it more. I think they did better than a lot of shows at addressing it.
Now you're bringing to mind about when Seven and Picard discussed assimilation and how they lost their humanity, and how even though they worked very hard to gain things back, they didn't get it back fully.
I mean, that little scene in season 1 of Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I was really into season 1. I wrote little blogs about it, by the way.
That's cool.
And
Well,
yeah,
when Deep Space Nine started, the very first episode where Picard is kind of turning over the reins to Cisco, and they're talking
Battle.
about Wolf 359. We really did just jump from him being assimilated and used in such a horrible way to
violated.
he's fine to resume command. He's okay. Nothing ever comes really of that. And it
Well,
would
he
have been
wasn't
nice.
fine. He was fine by Deanna Troy's standards. Deanna Troy is a counselor, and she had to go according to a DSM or whatever they had judging a captain's fitness. He wasn't fine in the head, because the first thing he said, we met in battle in Wolf 359. Blah, 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 blah. That's not something appropriate to say by any means. He was still letting his trauma rule him. He was fine according to the standards Deanna Troy had assessing a captain's fitness, but he wasn't mentally fine.
Well, yeah, but I mean, according to like the show, you don't really see that struggle, and it's there, and just he's such a great actor that there were times when he allowed a little bit to show through, but his character being that it was I'm the captain, I can't show weakness, I'm going, I can get through this. He was forced in a way that he could not control, to contribute to the deaths of his comrades, of his, friends and family and, allies. And that has got to be, you just think about it from a humanity point. We lost an opportunity to really dig into the real, hey, what in reality, if that happened, Starfleet exists in that manner today, he wouldn't just be given command of the Enterprise again. He wouldn't just go straight back to his captain's chair. Something would have to happen in between, and it's hard to see that it didn't really happen that way. I mean, it's a TV show, but
well, in a sense, we did get to see the consequences of that in First Contact, because Starfleet originally kept him out of the re-engagement with the Borg when they arrived in the Alpha Quadrant, remember?
Well, that's true.
They said, Picard was like, Starfleet has every faith in the flagship, but not every faith in her captain. They believe that one who was assimilated by the Borg shouldn't be placed in this situation again, but Picard was the one who broke the protocol when he saw the fleet was overwhelmed.
This is true. And I mean, I can't say that I would, from a realistic viewpoint, disagree with that assessment. Of course, we know that he had to get in there or the day wouldn't have been saved, but it was a missed opportunity in my mind.
Yeah.
To kind of give a little bit more of a, hey, even in the future, we're going to be dealing with trauma. I mean, it's just not going to
But then
stop
you see
happening.
the trauma. Remember in the scene when they go, the Lily and Picard go in the holodeck, right? And like Picard gets the machine gun, and then the suits that living hell out of the Borg, and then like just does not stop even after they're dead. And he goes, "Ah!" And just beats the living HE-double-L out of the one. Like he's just enjoying. And Lily's like, you were almost enjoying it.
But it's also a release of, just all of the pent up everything. Because it's not just anger, there's,
He's like
there's
violated, and he's like,
confusion,
he almost
there's
felt like
being
he was,
violated.
he almost felt as if he was beating the crap out of the Borg. He was going to get that patch of humanity back, almost. I don't know. Am I wrong, both of you? I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong.
Maybe I'm just a geek. I'm a geek.
Well, I mean, if you had a chance, I think if any of us were just through circumstance, as it was in the First Contact movie, presented, excuse me, with a circumstance in which we could essentially exact revenge in that moment, how many of us would not?
Well,
I'm not saying that out of the character of the three of us. I'm saying that out of humanity. And it's not the better choice, but the temptation is pretty strong, I'd have to say.
I'm not going to say how strong it is because we're on camera.
No proof. I think that our perception of the wrong is directly tied to the amount of temptation that there is. My sisters were very traumatically attacked by someone when we were younger. And I think if I had a situation like Picard surrounded by the Borg like that, if I had him there with a baseball bat, I think I would get a certain sense out of doing that, whatever you call it. And I think we have a certain desire to make things right, whether for ourselves or for somebody else. We have this desire to make things right. And so, yeah, I mean, the temptation to, and then once you start, I mean, I'm sure he felt better in some depth of his personality, felt better to say, you didn't beat me. I got in the last punch. I got in the last, And I think some of that's a male thing because I grew up with all boys. So I kind of feel like there's a certain amount of that that's, you know what? Yeah, you hurt me, but I'm got the last laugh because I hurt you worse, or I hurt you last, or and I think there could have been a little bit of that. I mean, he was a hothead young man. That's why he had a fake heart. So.
Oh, he got in a fight and ended up stabbed, and that's why he got a fake heart.
That's her point. He was a hothead.
Yeah, but having a hothead against bullies and those who hurt you does really nothing for yourself. It stops yourself from growing then.
Well, yes, but it's not like in the heat of the moment you go, do I want to grow here or do I want to exact revenge?
Exactly.
Well,
I'm not speaking up for revenge. Don't get me wrong. I get
but
that
in
it's
the
not
moment
healthy.
that you have,
I'm just saying, this reminds me of something that I read just within the last few days about, I know what it was. It was the Time article about the president of Ukraine. And I don't know if you've seen that, but they describe they tell a bunch of stories in that article. It's came out like a few days ago that we haven't heard yet, from anywhere else. And that includes the people who had to negotiate again with the Russian negotiators after they had seen the atrocities on the streets of the areas around Kyiv. And they were like, we could hardly look them in the face. And I am beyond impressed with their self-restraint. Like how they didn't go into that room and like knock the shit out of the Russian negotiators is beyond me. And how, someday when hopefully it happens that there's higher level negotiations between the actual presidents, I don't know how they can do that. I don't know how.
It's not easy to give grace when you're not offered any, but people are capable of it. Takes a lot, but people are very capable of it, and kudos to those who can.
I think that it's one of those things where you definitely have to reach higher than yourself, because I don't think on our own any of us can really do that.
No, we can't. We're weak.
Because I know for sure that just what I've heard and seen, the very first day that were en masse people leaving the Ukraine, there was a gentleman in a car traveling, and there was video of a Russian person in a tank and going out of his way to run over the car, knowing
I
there
saw
was
that.
And
I saw
to me,
video of a
that
Russian tank driving over a car with people in it. Unreal.
it just broke me, and I know people in the Ukraine, and I
Mhm.
did not know the gentleman that was killed. But it's just one of those things that you think, how do you do that? How do you negotiate with somebody that's the level of thinking, that's the mindset of these, you don't even want to say people sometimes, and any instance really, you see a wrong that is so grievous, and to be able to look at the other person as a person. I mean, that takes a lot more than grace, if you ask me. That's like way beyond anything that I'm capable of doing. And but even in our day-to-day lives, just you feel a perceived wrong, and how easy would it be to, hey, that person that I got cut off, I have an opportunity to cut them off, and I don't know, I think just human nature says do it. And I think also, if you show that much restraint, I mean, in general, Picard is known to be very much a diplomat. He shows that restraint on a regular basis, and I think you can only do that for so long before you break. And I think, like, in that moment, he broke a little.
It is so easy to hate someone who treats you as if you're nothing, who treats you as if you're not worthy of existence or life or happiness. But you have to remember they themselves are so unhappy that they take their unhappiness out on other people, and eventually they will pass on. They will have to go deal with their actions in another plane of existence. They will be unhappy, but we ourselves don't have to turn into the monsters that we survived. We can be better than the monsters that we survive, and we don't. If we start hating those things that we survive, those ugly things that we survive, we ourselves turn ugly, and we don't need to do that. We need to take what we learned from our ugly experiences and use those things to help others who are also in ugly experiences, and we're capable of that. And I speak from experience. I'm not going to get into those experiences because that would take away from the discussion, but we can use our ugly experiences to help others, and we should.
Agreed. And I think there's specific things people can do to healing, and I think healing has to come between the ugly experience and turning it around for good. I mean, unless, unless somebody just has the moral fortitude to go, I'm not going to be like the ones who hurt me, and just doesn't. But, they call trauma for a reason, and it sticks with you until you deal with it.
Yes. That includes
So-
forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, realizing how they treat us is not our fault, and realizing that we are not responsible for the behavior of other people. We are responsible how we respond to their bad behavior.
But I don't think it's as simple as I had this hurt, I heal from this hurt, I help others who are going through the hurt. I think it's like there's a melding of those, like I was hurt, but while I'm healing, I'm helping other people. That helps me to heal more.
We heal the
Yeah.
most by not becoming what we survived. And that takes a while. Yes, it takes a while. There's no timeline for that. And there shouldn't be a timeline. We shouldn't expect a timeline.
True.
And that sounds callous. It probably sounds callous, but we should not rush the healing.
That doesn't sound callous. It sounds compassionate. It sounds the exact opposite, because I think there's too many voices in our culture that are like, get over it. And if you've been through traumatic things, you know that you don't just get over it. That's not a thing for a lot of traumatic experiences, if not all traumatic experiences. So not expecting a timeline is compassionate to the person who's trying to recover from whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And when I was talking about getting healing, I didn't intend to make it simple, because I know it's not.
Well,
And
no,
in
I
a sense-
wasn't trying to say that.
Yeah, in a sense, I preach to myself, because, this is hard to admit, but it's true that I've carried my traumatic experiences with me
So do we
for
all.
long. Well, I don't mean just that they still affect me, because that's unavoidable. What I mean is, I have not done the steps that I know are available for healing, even though I know my life could be better on the other end of that. It's what I call the special magic of depression, that depression takes away your motivation to do the thing that would make you less depressed. Does that make sense?
It
Mhm.
does.
And so, I want my life to be better. And at the same time, I lack the motivation to do the things to make my life better. So I have to push myself all the time.
Mhm.
Well, I feel like, and I guess what I was trying to say is, I went through an extremely low period as a teenager, because the only people that I really considered to be friends were the members of the Star Trek Club. I had no friends my age. And my cousins felt more like a forced, I mean, they weren't cousins. We didn't really have a choice. We had to, do things together, get along together. But I went through a period where I was so depressed, and I really didn't feel like life was worth the trouble. But I came across someone who was struggling as much or possibly even worse than I was. And in trying to be there for that person, I realized that I kind of had to get back out there and do things that did help with the depression, because I was trying to do those things for the other person, and maybe I wasn't strong enough to do it just for myself, and I needed that other person as an excuse to be like, I can do something that makes me happy. So I guess that's what I was trying to get at, is that along the way, by trying to lift someone else up, sometimes you lift yourself up too.
Well, we get an energy from, giving motivation and giving help to others, and that energy makes us realize, hey, we're worth something. And a lot of times we don't often see that in ourselves without reaching out to others, because the appreciation of others reminds us, hey, we're worth something. Even if people don't tell us we're worth something, the appreciation others give us remind us that we are valuable to this earth and to whatever beliefs we have. So if we feel down, we should always help others and feed off their appreciation.
Agreed.
And so, yeah. If that's weird, that's weird, whatever.
Oh, yeah. We're all our own special type of weird. All of the nurses know what I'm in here doing right now, and they're like, "Yep, you're nerdy."
Well,
I didn't know the situation. I kept thinking, are you in the hospital? So what's going on?
Yes, I am in the hospital. I've got a long list of health issues.
Okay. You don't have to tell me
but-
anything you don't want to, of course.
But then I was in a really bad car accident, so I'm in a physical rehab facility right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's also a full hospital. So yeah, I got the whole hospital thingamajig going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I'm sorry you were in an accident. I hope that the recovery goes smoothly.
it's going. There's a silver lining is the fact that I have no memory of the accident. So it's just the physical healing, and I've been through that before. I've had to relearn how to walk before, so this was not that extreme. So I'm already better off than I was before. So trying to get that silver lining in there somewhere.
mm,
Plus I have you guys, which is great because I have something to think about and
yeah,
talk
we're a little
about.
family here, aren't we?
So it's great because when I find somebody who's nerdy enough to talk the way that we talk about Star Trek, it's fantastic. It's like this brotherhood and sisterhood of geeks, and I love it. We're just
You know what? It kind of bugs me. Not anybody who's saying it, but it kind of bugs me that Star Trek is considered geek by the larger culture, because I feel like what happens is it got labeled geek / nerd, whatever those. I'm never clear on the difference between those two terms, but it got labeled that at some level, right? Because there's a lot of science in the shows, obviously. And then people who haven't seen it yet, haven't gotten into it at all, they go, oh, that's geek, therefore it's not for me. And I'm like, it's better than that. If people would give it more of a chance and ignore it's geek kind of label, I think the franchise would be actually way more popular than it is.
I think so. Well, I'll be honest. I don't use those words unless I'm talking to other Trekkies.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually gotten some of my nurses and therapists to go and watch episodes, and they're like, it's not what I thought it would be. And I'm
Thank you. Confirmation of my theory. I love it.
Really
Go ahead.
not. And I had a talk with one, and he's like, well, what do you recommend that I start out with?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I would recommend Deep Space Nine if you're into the futuristic, kind of stuff. I said, but the newer shows are nothing like this, and you might enjoy some of the newer stuff like Picard. I said it's not my cup of tea, but you might enjoy it because it's a totally different atmosphere. It's not what you're thinking. It's not, boom, boom, science rays at each other
Yeah, I mean,
So-
the new Trek, well, especially Picard, is not centered on being on a ship all the time and, you know, alien of the week. It's way more narrative storytelling, way more multiple locations, way more like
Yeah.
typical scripted drama.
That's what I told him, and I don't see him again for a while, so I don't know if he actually went and watched Picard or not. But it'll be interesting to see if he does.
Yeah, I know a bit about the Picard time travel thing. Of course, they butchered it up. It wasn't Los Angeles, it was San Francisco. Of course, they had to butcher it up. I like the punk on the bus, though, but of course, they butchered up the city. I just can't.
See,
Well,
this
you
is
know.
the kind of thing you don't need to tell me.
If you really want to get into the geeky technical details, they butchered up the city. I just can't. The punk on the bus scene was funny, though.
Well, did you know it's the same guy who
I know
played
it's the same
bus
guy.
in the old movie? Yeah, Star Trek.
Yes, I
Or
read the
whatever it was.
article. Yes.
Funny that he'd give
That is
Kirk
cool.
the
That
finger,
is
but
very
he'll
cool.
calm down for 7, eh?
I'm sorry.
Funny that he'd give Kirk the finger, but he'll calm down for 7, eh? Maybe he likes the ladies better.
Who knows?
I don't know. I'm a geek. I notice technical details.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
But yeah. Anyway, everybody. But silver linings, that's a good segue. Like, what do you think the silver linings were about Scorpion? Let's go into that.
I think
we haven't. I've only recently rewatched part one.
Do we need a?
This is
do
a
we need a
two-parter, right?
reintroduction? Do we need a reintroduction?
Well, I recently rewatched back when I thought, 2 Fridays ago that
I'm sorry
I was
about that.
watching it on time. Don't worry, I'm not mad. I did watch part one, and
did too.
I mean, I've seen the whole series. Don't get me wrong. It's just, recent rewatch. And I didn't watch part 2 yet. But
I
the
didn't either.
silver
I thought we
lining
were
of
doing
part
that
1,
today.
the silver lining of part 1 is the Borg passed them by without assimilating them or attempting to, and they negotiated with Janeway without attempting to assimilate her. So that's a pretty big silver lining, if you ask me.
You literally don't just talk to the Borg. You don't converse with them. They just stick the tendrils in them, and they just stick tendrils in you and they take you.
You know what? Have you ever wondered how the Borg got started? Like, it's always been this giant Trek villain of these hugely cybernetically enhanced / sentient being combo. And it's terrifying for sure. But like, how did that ever come to be from nothing to that? How did that happen? And I'm not saying you guys know. I'm just saying that would be an incredible story to tell.
Yes.
And they should do a whole Star Trek movie about it, if you ask me.
No. A fan needs to do this because they screw up too much when they do it.
Well, yeah. I mean, they can't even get simple stories right when they try to retell.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is we need like
They can't get a freaking city right for goodness sake.
Are you guys turning into those bitchy Star Trek fans that we all hate?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What about it?
Yes.
They couldn't get San Francisco right. They wanted to
know.
from the Voyager home, and they couldn't get San Francisco right. For the love of God, the punk on the bus.
Exactly. Like, don't mess up my storyline. You want your own, go write your own,
So-
but don't
so
mess
let
up
me-
my storylines.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying, Heather. Are you saying that when they supposedly went, okay, is this in Picard or is this in
Like this
one
was
of the books?
Picard, like the sanctuary district was in San Francisco. The punk in the bus was on San Francisco, and they all went to Los Angeles.
They said they went to it. Are you saying they said to it? Oh, okay, I can't even talk.
Like the punk in the bus scene was in San Francisco. In
Oh,
Voyager's home.
from that movie?
Yeah,
whatever movie it was, and then they went to Los Angeles, and he's somehow still there.
like
Yes.
they screwed up the
also there.
cities.
Okay, so they should have gone back to San Francisco in
They
Picard.
should have gone
what you
back to
said.
San Francisco.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant that they said they went to Los Angeles, but they actually shot it in San Fran.
No, the
No, it
originals
was
were
a
in San Fran.
continuous. Yeah.
I hear you. It's a continuity problem. Okay,
Yes, that's the word I was trying to spit out.
you're fine.
And I'm sorry, but when you see the originals and then they bugger something so simple up, it's like,
That's why I said a true fan, because then they're gonna know that there's like, no, that's right. Yeah.
there was no reason they should have buggered that up.
No, there's not. Like somebody should have caught that.
I'm sure there's things that bug me too. I just don't know what
But
they're.
we shouldn't obsess. We shouldn't obsess. It's not healthy, especially since we're both sick.
It gives me something to do.
Somebody counted the number of photon torpedoes that they fire on Voyager, and how it went past the number that they originally said
they
in
had
early
to
episodes
begin
that
with,
they
yes.
had. Yes. Heard or saw Jane or Kate Mulgrew talking about that, and she was like, some fan did this, and she was kind of I don't remember how she said it, first of all, exactly, but she was kind of casting aspersions on that level of detail obsession. But it is what it is.
When it was
Yeah.
on the air, there was a Star Trek club the next town over from us, and so I joined. I was the youngest person in there, but there were people who would sit and they would count the number of hours that people spent in the holodecks.
Oh
and they would
man.
count the number.
Man.
This guy was so obsessed. He ended up actually getting married at the Star Trek experience, but
That's
he
in
would
Vegas.
count those things all the time. Like he would count, and they're using the transporters for all of these stupid things, and they're using all this energy, and and he would count this stuff, and he'd be like, that's, realistically speaking, that would not have fed that many people, or realistically, like, and I get to some people, they're sitting on the outside going, what kind of crazy is this? But on the other hand, some of us don't have a life outside of Star Trek, so
It's true.
this is our reality.
Well, at some level, you just got to go. It's science fiction for a reason.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's like Los Angeles and San Francisco are how many miles apart, for the love of God?
I have been on both ends of that spectrum, because I have been like, dude, it's a TV show. And then I've been like, are you kidding me? They couldn't have kept like one storyline straight like throughout so yeah, I've kind of moved up and down the spectrum a little bit. But I
Yeah.
kind of understand both sides too, I think, because for some of us, we really do get a connection with the character as if they're a real person. And I know of people who have gotten very, very clinically depressed because an actor was like, well, it was a job, and I'm not a huge Trekkie, or I'm not it was a job for me. And man, they got shaken hard.
Well, one of my favorite stories kind of like that is that when Robert Beltran went to, actually, I think his last name is pronounced Beltran. When he went to auditioned for Chakotay, he asked somebody, what's a Klingon? And they were like, what? I mean, somebody I don't know if he asked any of the people he was auditioning for. It might have been another actor. I don't remember that part for sure, but they were like, you better find out, man. You better bone up.
But there have been several times where I've heard a story about somebody who went in for a part, but they had never seen Star Trek before. They didn't know the whole deal.
There's a lot of Trek actors that's true for. Go ahead.
Well, and I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. It brings that diversity in, you know?
Yeah, and we all we know what we know, and we've gotten into the things we've gotten into, and haven't gotten into some other things that other people are into and would freak out about. And it's just like,
Right.
It is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my brother had a friend when we were high school aged, and he was into all of these other things. I remember he was like really into Babylon 5 at one point, and he's like, well, if you like Star Trek, why don't you like this? And I'm like, I don't know, it's not the same to me.
I once had a roommate who was into all of the science fiction shows that were on TV at the time. This was the mid 90s. And so we would watch Star Trek together. She watched Babylon 5, she watched Stargate, and I can't even remember all the other ones, though there were more. Yeah. And I watched some Babylon 5 with her. And then there was a period of time that I stopped watching it for whatever reason. I can't remember. And then I tried to start watching it again, not having watched the intervening episodes, and I was completely lost. So maybe one of these days I'll binge it.
I didn't see much of it, and then I didn't see much of like Stargate either. It just wasn't my thing, you know. I think Star Trek is really unique. Because sure, there's some fighting here and there, there's some political here and there's some other things, but I think the ultimate hope that's in Star Trek, the ultimate non-judging, everybody has a chance. The whole humanitarianism thing, I think that's, to me, probably why I like that more than other shows. So I'm not like a sci-fi person. You know, I've seen some Doctor Who, I've seen something, but I'm not really the concrete angel things in Doctor Who, like those terrify me. So I'm a little too wimpy to be really into a lot of the sci-fi stuff. I get nightmares, and I don't want to see the icky and the scary and the like. I'm okay with everybody wearing the same uniform and like exploring that weird anomaly in the universe. Like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I feel very much the same. I don't necessarily get into sci-fi that isn't Star Trek, and I can't necessarily explain why. I don't know if I can explain why I watch Star Trek and love it. I mean, the hopeful vision of a possible future is certainly awesome, and I support it. But I don't know if that's the reason I watch Star Trek. I think I've always explained it like I just enjoy the characters and the interaction between them and the storylines. So,
yeah.
But I will say too that my Star Trek fandom has grown. It's only ever grown from whenever I first started watching it, which would have been back when TNG was, making new episodes. I would watch it for whatever motivation, I don't know at the time. And then since that time, my love of it has only ever grown. So
I can tell you my initial motivation was simply I was the oldest of 5 kids. We were homeschooled. We had this huge garden that we put up, this huge fruit orchard that we took care of, that, Daddy planted. We were a very busy homeschool 4-H family, and that was my time. Like that was my only time with Star Trek. So I think I started more out of a necessity for something that was me, something that was just me, that my siblings weren't involved in, that nobody else was. Like, yeah, Star Trek, that's, your thing kind of. And then it did, grow and has continued to do so. Like at the time it was TNG, and that was like everything. But then with Deep Space Nine, I think I really got into the character development and the more realistic feel of it to me. But when Voyager was on air, I was kind of really into that, and I think a lot of that was mostly because it was the going to the club and being around other people that was something separate from my siblings, that was something separate from my huge family, that was all about everything together, and having that time every week. I knew when the new episode came out, that was my time to do that. But Deep Space Nine had the most, I think, of an impact on me.
That makes me think, doing something separately than everybody else, that makes me think of a good segue into Scorpion Part 1, since we are talking about that right now. Like, what Janeway's doing in the beginning of the episode, like Act 1, she's running the Leonardo da Vinci Holo program.
mhm.
Like, we knew that Janeway actually knew how to have a leisure time, right? She's a very hardworking individual, as we see in her autobiography. I don't know if either of you have read it. She's all about work. She went to high school early, the academy early. She made a deal with her parents about how if she was able to get into the academy early, they would let her go. And she committed to studying, and she was able to do it. And she just worked very, very hard to get her goals accomplished, and her family supported her. And she convinced this holo Leonardo da Vinci to take her on as a student, and that's where they came into the situation about running into the Borg.
Just a question. I'm not going to judge either way with the answer. Is the autobiography of Catherine Janeway considered canon? Yes or no?
Oh, I don't know, but it's a fun read. I plead the fifth. As a dual citizen, I'm allowed.
Dual citizen of what?
Canada
I would
and the United
say
States.
no,
Okay,
just because.
Well, you don't have to be a dual citizen to plead the fifth.
Well, I don't know if it's canon or not, but it's a fun read. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. It's entertaining.
It's cool. It's all good. I just was curious.
I would say no, just based off of what other people believe. But
like I said, I'm not. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just don't think that the majority of people would say yes. If
Which
that
is
makes
fine.
sense.
And I'm, like I said, I'm not super invested in the answer. Did you know it was Kate Mulgrew's idea to give Janeway, I don't know if it was her idea to give her this, holo program escape kind of thing, that whole element, or if it was her idea for Da Vinci. I think it was more the latter.
Possibly.
But we're grateful for the education. We love your brains and we love your facts. I love it when Trekkies bring facts to the table that I did not know.
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard that, but I've heard it more than once, I think. So
she did an interview I want to say on like one of the news channels or morning programs or something many years ago about being the first female captain in the Star Trek thing, and I think they addressed some parts about her character being possibly forced to be more aggressive, more work oriented, but I don't remember, that was so long ago. But it would be interesting to look up. I'm sure there's a video somewhere.
I'm sure.
I might do that tomorrow since I have nothing else to do.
It's just very interesting. They're faced with this they find this Northwest Passage and they talk about navigating it. And it's like, oh, yay, a shorter way home. And they're also faced with dealing with this Borg. But they suddenly find, oh, the Borg are dealing with a battle of their own. So they're not interested in us.
I
Side
think
note, it was Kate's birthday yesterday.
I
Just
saw
thought I'd
that.
share. Another little fact for you there,
I
Heather.
saw that. I said happy birthday online. I'm sure she never saw it, but I said it.
You know, she's a very nice lady. Met her at Star Trek Las Vegas, got a photo.
Nice.
I've heard that she's very down to earth with fans. But you know, there's some notable moments in, I haven't watched part 2 recently, so I do need to do that. But when she's talking about making a deal with the devil,
Mm-hmm.
and then when she's talking to Chakotay about her being alone,
That was such a good scene.
you know, and you feel that emotion. She's such a great actress. I mean, you really feel that. So I am alone.
Yeah.
But you feel the whole weight that she's holding of every soul aboard the Voyager, and the possibility of telling them they're not going to make. I mean, it's like the first episode, and it's that whole we're 70 years away from home all over again, where it's, you know, we've been holding out on this hope that we're going to find the caretaker, or we're going to find a passage, we're going to find another wormhole, we're going to find a way home. And it's like you feel that all over again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the responsibility of it's the captain being married to the ship and the captain being the parent over the crew, sort of thing. Nobody else can understand those things but the captain.
Right. But you know, it seems like in that moment she was more alone than we've ever seen any of our captains before, because in every, you know, in everything before, Kirk, even when things were going really bad, even if Spock was, you know, fighting with him, or McCoy was fighting with, he always had somebody. Captain Picard always had somebody. Captain Sisko always had somebody. But in that moment, Janeway felt like nobody had her back at all. The one person that she really felt like she could, the one person who said, we'll face this together, we'll do this together, when that moment comes, I got you, said, you're making a fatal mistake. I think that was a moment when I think that bond was really threatened more than at any point through the entire series. I think that bond was really threatened because she felt at that moment more alone than any other point. And she did a great job of conveying that. And I think for me, the scariest moments that brought that most intense emotion for me was when they were like, when Tom says, who could do that to the Borg? And then that moment where she's like, I'm alone. Because those were moments that where fear just really kind of felt real.
Well, and she said, I guess I'm alone after all. There was
Yeah.
also, I could see tears in her eyes, not overflowing, but I could see them.
Right.
And to me, that also conveys how bummed out she is, that Chakotay is like, I'll follow you, but I don't think we're right here. So she doesn't have his support, and like that kills her.
Well, because I think there's a lot packed into that. There's the whole one, he doesn't really support her. And after all they've been through, because where were they at that point? 3 years in. So, that was something. And she had just poured her heart out to him and just said, 3 years ago, I didn't know your name, but now I can't imagine going a day without you. And now it's like, he doesn't feel the same way. So there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of, well, if something happens and this fails, he doesn't believe in this plan. What does that mean for the crew? Does that mean he's willing to, find a planet and give up? And I think she has so many myriad of thoughts that went through that. But I think the initial hurt of, she had just poured her heart out to him. He had just made that, we'll go through this together. When that moment comes, you're not alone. And, we're talking not very long afterwards, maybe a couple hours after that speech. And he's saying, oh, well, I think this is a fatal mistake. I'll do what you tell me to do because you're the captain. So you're pointing the phaser at my head here, but I wouldn't make that choice. I wouldn't do that if you weren't forcing me to.
A lull. What are you doing, Heather?
Just pondering, listening. I love hearing thoughts.
Cool.
I don't know, maybe he's just frustrated because of all that's already happened.
I think he's afraid, honestly. Not that that's a judgment, because as we've said,
Right.
we all have fear, and it's understandable. So, but I think he's afraid of Janeway negotiating with the Borg. Like, that's, it's always risky to try to resist, obviously, right? Or to talk to them in any capacity. So,
Like he told the parable of the scorpion. He doesn't believe that people or individuals or collectives are capable of making any other choices than the ones they were designed to make. They're not. Borg aren't capable of making good choices. Borg are capable of doing what they're designed to do, nothing else.
And I think he had a very legitimate fear in that. That's one of the reasons why the Borg were brought in. They were this massive collective, and it's not a being that you can reason with because of the technological side of things. You're talking about a machine that makes a calculated decision. And so you're not talking about something that, in negotiation skills, we know this, you find an emotional connection, and there cannot be that emotional connection And you're talking about the collective. Okay, once they have that information in their hands, you no longer have your hold over them.
That's true, but he
And
also
one
underestimated
ship,
Janeway's intelligence.
eh, exactly, but one ship against how many millions of ships could they possibly encounter it could take 2 or 3 years to get through all of that Borg space under their own power. What's to say we got what we wanted? They're a machine. They have no moral code of we gave our word. And so I think he had a very valid fear in that. Because I think I would have felt the same way in his position. Like, how do we know? I mean, I don't know that I would have suggested turning around. However, I think going into it with the idea that, well, we might become drones very soon, because they had no guarantees. There was absolutely nothing. She had this idea that they could delete the doctor's program and be able to keep them from getting the information. But realistically speaking, technologically, they probably could have still retrieved it.
And the
And
information was in their minds anyway. They already had it in their minds, so all the Borg had to do is go in their minds and get it out. So deleting the doctor would have done nothing.
so I think Chakotay in a way was thinking in a lot more logical way than she was, because despite her exterior, Janeway was very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, she did a really good job of giving that cool, level-headed leadership. But I think she was in a spot where she was very emotional. She didn't know what else to do. She was going backwards. And in her mind, like she had even said that, and turning around means giving up on going home. And I don't think she was thinking, because they said, we don't know what else we could encounter. We could encounter something that could even get us home faster, but that's not where her mind was. And I think she was just so set on that. But again, I mean, she's in the most stressful place you can think of, two very powerful enemies.
Yeah.
I mean, the Borg could have destroyed the Voyager at any point, because one Borg ship was so much bigger and stronger. We were terrified of the Borg, and now we found something that terrified the Borg.
Yeah.
Like,
But then
that's
when she saw the Borg were broken, I don't know, Janeway likes fixing broken situations, as we saw with the caretaker in the Ocampa. When she saw the Borg were broken, she's like, oh, I want to fix this broken situation. So she was like, why can't we help you? Can we help you? Let's see if we can help you. And when Harry Kim got attacked, she's like, I want to figure out how to help Harry Kim, even if I have to make an alliance with the devil. I want to take these people down that hurt my crew member. Even if I have to risk my other crew members to do it.
You think Janeway has a savior complex?
Yes.
I can see that.
I need to eat soon, so are we gonna pause for watching?
Yes. Would you like to watch both of them and maybe some new ideas will come to pass?
I might do that.
So
Yeah.
are we doing back to back and then coming back together, or
Yes,
are we doing one and then the other?
We can do both and come.
Let's do back to back.
Let's do
I
back.
may or may not rewatch part 1 since I just rewatched it the other day, but I will meet you after I've seen.
All right. Yeah, we can do back to
part
back
2.
because we might learn some new insights, and you can do whatever you like.
Well, if the internet cooperates, I might be done faster, because I think I'm just going to watch part 2 and eat my popcorn.
Well, I can do the same as y'all. I've seen both of them enough already.
Well, in that case, let's just pause for an hour. Actually, let's come back in an hour and 15, because you know, I have to like pause and go to the bathroom, and I'm the queen of I don't want to miss a single word. So if I miss something, I rewind and all that kind of stuff.
And,
So how about we an hour
Yeah.
and about 15 from now?
and we have pretty much discussed the events of part 1.
True.
So we'll come back after we watch part 2, and I've seen Scorpion quite a lot. So
So how about 6:30 Eastern time, which is 4:30 your time, Heather?
that sounds fair enough. That sounds fair enough. And I'm sorry I've been a lot quieter today. I have been struggling with a bit of I've been struggling a bit with my personal condition for a couple days. So
No worries.
Go get yourself a cup of tea.
tea makes me sleepy. I've just been taking it quiet today, but I'm happy to be here and to kind of captain and just enjoy a quiet discussion. So
Cool.
I'll see you then.
All right. I'll see you then.
All right. Okay.
I'm done, finally.
So what did you think of the episode?
Very well done. You know, I'd forgotten a lot of this. I think my mind conflates the discovery of Seven or Seven joining the crew with, wasn't there a different episode where right at the end they found her on a planet?
No.
Damn it. What am I thinking of then?
I was confusing it with another episode, I think, because there was another episode where she like had a flashback to being on a ship with her parents.
That was the
Well,
Raven.
yes, that. I know that.
That was Dark Frontier, I believe.
Nope, that or was it Raven?
That was Dark Frontier. She read her parents' diaries.
Okay.
Was Dark Frontier the one where they showed like almost the whole episode, or a huge chunk of it anyways, is actually portraying her parents trying to secretly
Yes.
study the Borg? Okay. That's Dark Frontier.
Yes.
And then Raven is a separate episode where they find the Raven, and that
show her
triggers memories
assimilation.
for her of being assimilated.
Yes.
Okay.
I told you I'm a geek and I can just pull random.
Oh, it's cool. It's all good. I'm still trying to figure out. There was some episode, I'm convinced, excuse me, where they find some Borg, like right at the very end of the episode. They find some Borg or ex-Borg on a planet. Maybe it's the first time they've discovered Borg or encountered Borg in the whole series. The first time in Voyager. I don't know. Like I said, my mind is
Wait, are you
conflating.
talking about Unimatrix Zero?
I don't know.
Where they have
I-
that little
As
pleasure
I've told you, most of the time I don't remember episode names.
Okay.
What were you saying? Were they something?
Like, you know, the Unimatrix where the little export go for the pleasure planet type thing to have their human.
Right. They like when they're sleeping, they all escape into Unimatrix Zero.
Yeah. Is that what you're
Yeah, I remember that, but one of these days I'll figure it out.
Got you.
And none of it has to do with this episode anyway, so I'll stop.
Look,
You can talk about whatever you want. I don't care.
Thank you for giving me permission to talk about whatever I want.
You don't need permission. You can just do it. Anyway, yeah, so I think it's interesting that Janeway was so set on doing this. And isn't it interesting that she always just takes Tuvok with her as an accessory wherever she goes?
Hmm.
Doesn't it seem like that? Like he's
Never thought about it like that.
Like she just picks him up, Tuvok, let's go. Like, shouldn't she have like an away team? Why did she only just take one officer?
I'm gonna dump this so I can use this to
Like,
I think
isn't it? Yeah.
perhaps there's a subconscious thing about trusting Tuvok more, feeling safer with him around, maybe.
That's true, but this is an away mission, right? Shouldn't they follow away team protocol?
Well, I mean, if you want to be technical, we broke some major Starfleet protocol with the whole episode. So,
True. I mean, she has a crew of how many? I forget how many are on the ship at this point, but she could have taken some engineering with her and just not just Tuvok and her. I mean, come on, there's other talented crew, right?
Well, she's known Tuvok for longer, and he is chief of security. So, I mean, she's known him longer than Chakotay for sure, and probably longer than most people, if not all people on the crew.
That's
So there's
that's what I was
trust.
saying. I
There's
think there
trust there,
was
and a shorthand probably. You know how when you've worked with someone for a long time, you can develop a shorthand with each other.
and I think, and it's been years since I watched through, because I watched through when it was on TV, but I do kind of feel like there was an almost unspoken understanding between them that despite how close her and Chakotay got through going through everything, I think there was still a deeper trust. And remember, she feels like Chakotay completely betrayed her right now at this point after Scorpion. So I think he's got to kind of rebuild that. So I think she kind of maybe feels like Tuvok is more dependable in a way. Maybe not maybe subconsciously. I don't know.
I actually see Chakotay's side. I know we're talking about why Tuvok all the time and not who was right, but I actually see Chakotay's side quite a bit because he didn't agree with the decision in the first place, though he agreed to go along with it, obviously, at first. But then once he's in command, because the captain's disabled essentially for that time period, like he then is in command and the situation had changed. So he made when he said, I made a tactical decision, I think he's right that he made a tactical decision. Again, whether it was the right one is a separate debate, but I don't fault him for
Oh no, not at
making
all.
a decision in the moment that he believed to be the best one. Even though
And there was a high probability that he was going to remain in command.
Right. Janeway could have died. So, and in fact, that was, like you're saying, that was very likely, actually.
Yeah. But you know, captains and first officers, like first officer, like how is it that once the captain speaks, the decision is made? How come he didn't honor that? Like, was there really not that relationship there?
Well, again, they've only known each other for about 3 years at this point. And he used to be Maquis, don't forget that.
That's what I was thinking. Like maybe the Maquis mindset never really left. He had to like put on the uniform again and act Starfleet because that's what the situation was at the time. But he never really stopped being Maquis. It was like, oh, to hell with it. I'm gonna just go back to Maquis mindset and do what needs to be done and forget that I was pretty much, my life was saved by these Starfleet people. I could have been screwed up the creek, but my life was saved. I'm going to forget all this goodwill that I was given in that one situation. I'm going to do things the Maquis way and hell with everything else, right?
The question in my mind right now is whether these two episodes, Scorpion, came before or after. I think it's after Resolutions. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I seldom know what anybody is talking about, so you might want
to. Resolutions is the episode where they almost make Janeway and Chakotay get together.
Oh yeah, where they're stranded on the planet
as a couple,
right?
Yeah, I'll be right back. Need water.
It's like, I don't know, I don't know, just, I guess the goodwill was forgotten. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to say too much without Connie.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that came into play, really. I feel like it was more of a practically, logically speaking, there was a very high probability that she was gone for
Mhm.
all intents and purposes. So he was the one that was going to explain to the crew. He was the one who was going to get them out of this sticky situation. So I really feel like he did what he felt in the moment had the highest probability of success. I really don't feel like he had any inkling of doing something the Maquis way. And Chakotay was part of the Maquis because he has a sense of morality that that goes back to the Native American sense of justice, which I do understand that a little bit more because of my family heritage.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of that. He did what he felt like was the right thing to do because of the oppression of the Cardassians. He wasn't Maquis because he was anti-Federation, he was anti-Starfleet or anti-rules. He was Maquis because he felt like somebody needed to stand up against the brutality because it was well known, the brutality of the Cardassians. Anyone who had faced them, anyone who had been in one of their labor camps, anyone who had been a prisoner of war, knew the cold brutality of the Cardassians. I think he felt like he was really doing what was the right thing at the moment.
Like Ro mentioned him at one point. I don't know if you remember when Ro was discussing, like, I believe it was in
Thank you.
Preemptive Strike, she mentioned Chakotay, even though Chakotay was not mentioned by name. One of my instructors actually left the academy to go join the Maquis. I think she was talking about Chakotay.
And that's a very real
Oh, Connie's
possibility.
thinking. I just inspired Connie's thinking. Oh gosh. Do you remember the scene when she was talking about Chakotay?
No, but there actually is a
Come on,
character
just minimize it, right?
mentioned super briefly once or twice in TNG who has a name very similar to Chakotay. It's like the same name, only pronounced slightly different. And every time I've seen it, I've been like, "Oh my god!" But you know, obviously they hadn't created the character of Chakotay yet, so I'm not certain. And I don't know whether canonically the character you're talking about, the instructor, is Chakotay or not. I just don't know one way or the other. I
feel
haven't
like I've been in this discussion with someone before.
probably.
I am a geek.
Now I'm racking my
I'm not
brain.
apologizing. I refuse to apologize. I own the geekness.
It's all good.
But I was telling Heather I didn't want to get too far into that aspect with you gone, but I really don't feel like it was a rebellion thing
I agree.
on Chakotay's part. I don't feel like there was really an intent of disobedience. I feel like he really thought
Mhm.
the most probable outcome is Captain Janeway's gone. You know, she's not in a position where she can command. She's not in a position to do anything. I have to face this crew. I have to do what I feel like is the right thing to do. And I feel like Chakotay followed his heritage and his upbringing and his religion with a very staunch sense of justice. And I feel like that's part of why he was part of the Maquis, not as a rebellion thing, not as a disobedience thing, not anti anything, but rather as a sense of all of the injustices that were well known. I mean, the Federation was very well aware of what Cardassia was doing to Bajor the entire time. They were aware of it, and the Federation did absolutely nothing to stop the Cardassians from doing what they were doing to Bajor. So Starfleet officers, that's why they joined the Maquis, was they felt like, well, if the Federation isn't going to come up, Federation isn't going to save the day, well, we're going to do that. We're going to, and as far as the Maquis were concerned, they were being Superman. They were being the saviors of not just Bajor, but anyone that the Cardassians had crossed. So I don't think Chakotay had that in him. I think he had a sense, wrong or right, he had a sense that what he was doing was the right thing.
I agree. I think he just plain disagreed with Janeway about what was the best choice in this situation. That's my opinion.
Right.
And, I don't even think that it was like once he was in command, he's like, oh, now here's my chance to go against her and do what I thought all along. I don't think he was like that. I think he was just like, her plan is like asking for suicide, and I think we should do this other thing. So, there he goes.
Well, it's also about, it's perhaps, Janeway had a reasonably comfortable life, comfortable career, comfortable upbringing. And she really didn't know how to deal with an uncomfortable situation. And she was learning trial by fire. And to deal with this uncomfortable situation for her is to really deal with it as quickly as possible, even if it meant making other people uncomfortable. And she didn't really have time to think about how her decisions might make other people uncomfortable. This is the same thing she had to deal with when she had to destroy the array. And Chakotay is used to uncomfortable situations, but he's also remembered the human factor as well. And he's trying to balance the human factor with also having to deal with uncomfortable situations,
I think Janeway had a lot more to prove. And that can be a positive thing. It can also be a very negative thing, because when you have a lot to prove, whether you want to admit it or not, you're really using that emotion to make judgments. And I think she was much more emotional in the, I'm not telling these people that I've given up on them. I'm not, I don't, come hell or high water, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I think in Chakotay's mind at this point, plan A failed. It's done. The captain's brain function is not there. We failed. We need to move on to plan B. And I don't think there was any sense of disregarding or disobedience or anything. I think it was a sense of, okay, that plan didn't work, let's move on. So at least that's what I'm saying from my point of view, is just that, okay, plan A didn't work, we're going to try this way. And I think he was much more comfortable with the idea of dropping a plan and moving on to the next one than Janeway, who gets that plan and this is it.
Janeway wasn't used to failure.
She was not used to failure. She was not used to changing plans. I think Chakotay, and part of that probably being the Maquis and him, okay, that didn't work. Next, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan F, whatever it takes, we move on. We keep moving forward regardless of the plan. It changes, big deal. We keep going.
It's very bad to go through life without being used to failure. It's very bad to go through life without failing, because then you don't learn how to adapt. You don't learn to grow. You don't learn to survive, and you don't learn how to accept something and develop ideas and develop inner strength. You don't learn how to develop resilience. And Chakotay had a sense of resilience that Janeway really didn't, because she didn't know how to fail. She was like, oh, if we don't keep trying this, like, what else are we going to do? Chakotay's like, okay, let's have other plans. Janeway's like, okay, this is the plan. We're going to keep trying it. And it's not going to fail because I'm not going to let it fail. It's your fault if it fails because you didn't have faith in it. If you have faith in it, it's going to work. And that's it.
I read a quote, and I cannot remember where someone said, I wish you failure, because from failure comes adaptation, something to that effect. And I think there's a certain amount of truth to that. I mean, how many light bulbs did we go through before we got to one that actually worked? How many times did the Wright brothers crash a flying machine before they got one that just went a few feet? I think we need that adaptation. We need to, if you succeed the first time with everything, then it gives you a sense of, I can't fail. And then when you do fail, inevitably, because none of us are perfect, I think it has a harder effect failing on someone who is used to getting their way.
Mm-hmm. Like if you're handed everything, if you have no struggle for anything, then when suddenly you're forced to work for something, then you don't know how to do it. So it's always good to actually learn self-reliance and emotional resilience, and not have that expectation that you're going to be handed things or that you're going to succeed at everything. You have to understand that failure is growth, because it teaches you new ways to do things. And it also teaches you that you have to learn new ways of doing things. You have to learn to listen to yourself and to others, and to just understand that it's okay to fail, because that it allows you to learn.
Well, I can't remember the name of the episode, but Deep Space Nine, when Kira and Dax were trying to get back to Bajor to warn them that the Cardassians were behind the terrorist group and the coup on the government. And Kira tells Dax that she needs to learn to fly by the seat of her pants, that you Starfleet types are so comfortable with things that work. When you push a button, you expect it to work. And sometimes you just gotta go for it. You lose your gut instinct. And I think to a certain extent that applies, because when you're used to everything that you touch has that Midas touch, and then all of a sudden, you find yourself in a situation where it looks like it's going to be lose-lose. There is no winning this. People who are used to getting knocked on their butts get up. They dust themselves off, and they are like, okay, well, there's got to be another plan. And people who aren't used to that are sitting there in the dust going, I don't know what to do. I don't see another option.
What are your thoughts, Connie? You're muted.
I don't have any thoughts to share at the moment.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Like thoughts are there, and sometimes they're not there. And Scorpion Part 2 is interesting. Like, it's a lesson of failure, and it's also a lesson of growth. I mean, people's natures get the better of them sometime, and a lack of impulse control also comes out, because I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for Chakotay to go against what Janeway had ordered, but he did it. And
Again, I think
emotion. What?
his sense of I think that was his sense of justice, his sense of it does not matter how I personally feel about this. I have to do what I believe is best for the crew. So I think in that sense, they were both doing what they felt like was the best thing to do in that moment.
Yes. But they also had poor Harry Kim to think about because he was laying on this bed. Like they thought he was going to die from all that crap that he was
Yeah,
attacked.
and I know that was scary,
Covered in tendrils.
Well, I think, to be honest, I think that that's part of why Star Trek is set up the way that it is. They don't have a captain and a first officer that see eye to eye on everything, that agree on everything, because they need that someone to work against from the very beginning. Spock disagreed with Kirk. Riker disagreed with Picard. God knows Kira disagreed with Cisco. I mean, but that was part of why the system worked, because they needed that. If it was just a bunch of yes men around, there's nobody to challenge. What if there's a better way? What if this would work? Throwing out ideas. Hey, did you think about this angle? Did you think about that? I mean, that's why we have checks and balances in the government. That's why we have different ranks in the military. There's got to be somebody to work off of for it to work. Otherwise, it's just a leader with a bunch of minions that, yes, sir, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
you say jump, I say how high. There needs to be that. And I think we saw that in other series more, because we saw some of the first officers and a captain saying, hey, you were right, you made me think about this, or how many times do we have a first officer that really deserved a write-up or a reprimand for disobeying a certain order, but it turned out to be the right decision, and the captain realized that in the end of the episode. So I think that goes back to the level of trust too.
Mhm.
Because you're right, you're only 3 years in to what they believe is going to be a 70-year journey, and we don't see a whole lot of the play of Maquis into Starfleet. We do see some questioning of, well, why did we have to be the ones to adapt? Why did we, we see a little bit of that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you think about it, taking two crews into one, especially two with such opposing viewpoints into one, was not an easy task. And I think they did a great job with it.
Yeah.
But I think there was always that underlying play that most of the time we weren't so fully aware of. But
Yeah.
this really brought that all to the surface, because she felt like when it came right down to the line, he's going to do what he wants to do. And he felt like, for all intents and purposes, I'm in command and I have to do what I feel like is the best thing to do. Because had she died, had she been brain dead, had this, treatment not worked, Chakotay would have been the one to go to the crew. He would have been the one to, get them out of this sticky situation, because they were in a pretty bad spot. So I think he had a lot of those things weighing on his mind. So I think they both felt completely justified in their feelings. And I think they were both right to a degree. But in the end, like she said in the end of the episode, in the end, we came together, and that's what matters. And that's
And
what we need to do every time.
that makes me think of an important piece of communication that 7 of 9 spoke about, that your individuality will be your undoing. And communication is important when, it's surprising that 7 would be so independent in communication. Like, that sounds like an independent thought, and Borg usually aren't supposed to have independent thoughts, but that doesn't sound like a thought that came from the collective. That sounds like a thought that came from 7.
She was disconnected at that time, I think.
Yeah.
So she was disconnected from the hive mind. So any
weak.
thoughts she had were independent at that moment.
Yeah.
The connection that she had was weak, she said, because of the rift.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I just remember that the look on her face when she was connected to Chakotay. And it's very difficult. Remember, they had a Borg hue, and that disconnect from the collective. It's very confusing. And she was only a little girl when it said 18 years she had been a Borg. Well, she was a little girl, so this had to have been something strange for her too. So you've got a lot going on. I had forgotten about that very end part. And yeah, I mean, you're talking about the whole ship going through a lot with this, not just the fear and the new enemy and this war, but bringing somebody else in, the whole title about welcoming in a new crew member. Any change, bringing someone new in without any of the other aspects of the change, that's a lot. And then you figure that new crew member is a Borg.
Someone different than you are. Basically, it boils down to that.
But I think there's a level of how far can we trust 7 of 9? How connected is she? How easy is it to reconnect? All of these things. I mean, that's a lot to consider, for sure. So yeah, we got a lot of adjustments going on, and it was a great way to start the season out for season 4, because it brings up all of these questions. How are they going to answer this? How are they going to resolve these different things? Because they're still in Borg space. They still have a long way to go. Are the Borg going to hold up their end? Because they've already threatened not to. They already tried to assimilate them. They've already shown that they didn't respect that. So Chakotay was right. And so now we have to get through there. We know that the Borg have the ability to open up that rift again. Are they going to do that? We have a lot of questions at this point, and I think that this is the beginning of a very big change for the Voyager. And it was a good way to open up the season. I mean, really, because we've got many more questions than we have answers to.
Well, the thing you have to remember is when somebody new enters your family or your group, it's not impossible to love them. It might be difficult to love them because they might come from a new culture or a difficult situation, or have things in their past that make it hard for them to acclimate to a more pleasant situation. But it's not impossible to love them. You just have to take the time to get to know them and understand that they are getting to know you at their pace, and that They might not warm up to you as quickly as you expect them to or want them to, and that you might have to be a little gentler with them than most people, and that you probably shouldn't throw yourself at them as much as you may want to, or be as clingy or whatever. You just have to be gentle with them and remember that there's a person in there, despite all the nervousness and quirks they may have on them,
And it's
person
both.
worthy of love and compassion, and that they'll show it to you. Just give them the time that they need, and they need to learn to trust you, and you need to show them that they're worthy, that you're worthy of their trust, and that
Right, it goes both directions. So,
yeah,
and I think also my devotional a long time ago, it was an older lady that was being sent to a nursing home. Her family was all gone. She had no one. And so of her, I don't know, pulling a number out, like 50 years of marriage and everything. So all she had left was this tiny little suitcase. And she gets to the nursing home, and they welcome her, and the taxi driver helps her in, and the nurse says, well, we hope that you enjoy your stay. And she said, I love it. She hadn't seen her room yet. And she said, I love it. And the nurse says, well, you haven't seen it yet. And she said, I've already decided that I love it, because I can decide now to hate this or love this, but it doesn't change the fact that it is. And I think we could apply that in every part of our lives. Is, I'm not really loving where I am at the moment, but I can cry over having lost my belongings. I lost my entire Star Trek collection. I lost my clothes. I lost everything again, not for the first time in my life, but it is. I mean, I can't change it. I can't go back. I can't change it. So I think that moving forward, whatever the change is, whether it's moving, a new job, the addition of a daughter-in-law or son-in-law, or, the exit of a family member, whether by death or divorce or whatever, any change, we don't like change. So we have to decide, I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to make a concerted effort to make this a positive thing, or I could sit here in my room and cry all day, every day.
yeah,
But but that's a decision. And it's not a one-time decision. It's a decision you make every single day. So, you multiply that by the number of crew members aboard the Voyager. Because, in reality, most of the crew did not know how close they came to losing Captain Janeway until after the fact. But it didn't take long for that to make it around the ship. But and then there's got to be a level of, man, we came this close to losing our captain, we came this close to losing this war, we came this close to, and and then 7 of 9 coming aboard the ship, roaming around the ship. I mean, how many times did that raise an eyebrow of, what if she gets that connection back to the collective? What if she sends our location to the Borg? What if she betrays us? And so I think there's a lot of trust issues for the whole crew, the whole ship, the whole, everybody. And then her, they took her away from the only family that she ever really knew and understood. So, they're asking her to trust them. And they took her away from everything. There's a certain safety in being a member of the Borg, and they took that away from her.
Well, to be fair, I think 7 of 9 was going through a Stockholm syndrome. I will say that. Because the Borg did assimilate her and her parents when she was just a child, and 7 grew up assimilated and protective of an abusive situation, and that is a case of Stockholm syndrome. And I will say this, that she eventually came to understand that this was a case of her Stockholming, and she was in fact very human, and that she wasn't capable of gaining back her humanity fully.
Well, they took that away from her, and they took that away from her.
She was violated, and
So
she never
exactly,
erased
it was a very awful violation. I mean, we think about violations against children in our human minds, about that being so much more heinous, if you will. And of course, the Borg don't think, so that doesn't connect with them. But I think, as she regained some of those memories, when they assimilate, they take everything about the individual and they pull it into the collective. So somewhere in the collective would be her memories.
I know her parents are there, because there was a point, like I believe it was it the Raven or Dark Frontier? I'm not exactly clear. I know she re-met her father.
Don't remember that. That was a long time
She
ago.
addressed him as Papa, so.
I need to go back to the beginning and just rewatch the whole
But
thing.
I think, we don't, and your speech about how we can choose how we respond, we don't have to be, I will reiterate what I said earlier, we don't have to become the monsters that we survive. We don't have to let monstrous situations suffocate us to the point where we are dehumanized beyond repair. We can learn everything and anything from horrible situations. We can learn absolutely everything. We can still retain our good natures. We don't have to let horrible situations assimilate us to the point where we lose our hearts, our feelings.
Have you read Corrie ten Boom's book?
Never heard of him.
She was part of a Dutch family. They repaired jewelry, but they hid Jews from the Nazis, and they ended up getting caught. And Corrie and her sister were sent to concentration camp, and horrible things happened. Corey's sister ended up being murdered by the Nazis, as well as most of the members of her family. But towards the end of her life, she embraced one of the guards from the camp, and she showed a love of forgiveness on a level I'm not sure very many people could do that. But I was thinking of her story while you were talking about how she didn't let the things that happened to her, that happened to her family, keep her from showing the love that she felt like she was supposed to show. And I mean, that's difficult. It's really, really difficult. It's hard for us to forgive somebody who cut us off in traffic or grabbed something, we were reaching for in the grocery store, or something cut in front of us in line, in the checkout line, whatever. But these minor infractions, these minor inconveniences, it's hard for us, and things that are much bigger. robbing,
Yeah.
entire families or planets, or, assimilating entire worlds and species. That's so far out of our comprehension. And I think we do need to keep a level of, we can't let the monster turn us into a monster.
It's hard to give grace and forgiveness when it's not given. It's hard to be kind and loving when it's not given. But we need to do it. I mean, if only for ourselves, if only to preserve our own humanity. Because if we turn into the monsters that we survive, the world's full of enough monsters. We don't need to add to that.
This is true. Well, I mean, I think for a lot of us, it's not that we feel like, okay, bad things were done to me, I'm going to do bad things to somebody else. It's a twisted sense of justice. I was hurt, and I'm going to seek out these people that hurt other people, and I'm going to hurt them worse. And I don't think that it's necessarily a desire to become a monster, but I think it's a very easy thing to do, and an easy line to cross between, like the Maquis did. It went from just we're trying to protect from the brutality of the Cardassians, to they went to straight out attacking the Cardassians. And if you're Cardassian, the only good Cardassian is a dead Cardassian, so why does it matter? So I think it's a very easy line to cross.
Well, we shouldn't be the Cardassians of the occupation. Like, they wished death and non-existence upon people. They wished that the Bajorans didn't exist just because of who they were and what they stood for and their beliefs. I mean, personally, people had treated me as if I wasn't worthy to exist, that I shouldn't exist. They treated me as if I didn't exist. They still do to a point. And I'm not that way. I don't treat people as if they're not worthy to exist. I treat people as if they're certainly worthy to exist. I treat them as if they're lovely. And even if I get mad at them and say things I shouldn't, I apologize, because I don't dehumanize people as I have been dehumanized. I don't believe in that. It's not right to dehumanize, even though I've been dehumanized, because what's that do for me? That turns me into a monster. I've survived, and I've survived plenty of monsters, and I don't need to become one myself. It's a waste of time and energy that I simply don't have.
I've heard stories that would just break your heart and make you cry, especially about children who are born. I had a niece who was born with some physical and mental things, and people said such unkind things to a 4-year-old girl about things that was out of her control. But when my younger sister had a baby, whose organs were on the outside of his body when he was born, and Austin lived for 3 months, but there were people who, it's such a cruel thing to do. Well, he didn't deserve to live anyway. He shouldn't have been born. You should have aborted him, blah, blah. I mean, people said such unkind things. And my sister made a comment one time that, yeah, Austin was only here for a few months, but during the time that he was here, he made people smile. He made people enjoy life, and that made it worth everything. And we put our own ideas of what somebody else's life is worth on them, and we don't have the right to do that. What right does anyone have to say, you don't deserve to live, you don't deserve to exist, you don't deserve to be here, you don't, who has that right? And I think in the greater sense of justice, there are those among us who would say, hey, let's fight for this. Let's pick up this cross. Let's fight for this cause. But we're always going to run into those people who want to play God. Well, you don't deserve to be here. You don't deserve this. And who are they?
They're a word I don't dare say on this recorded call, otherwise my mother might get mad. But we need to be advocates for ourselves and our right to live as we are, authentically and freely, unafraid of our own skins and our own neurology and diversity. And we need to be advocates for each other's right to free neurology and diversity.
Well, can I just tell you, I've referenced my cousin Stephanie before, and I have a lot because you remind me of her.
Oh, I do. That's nice. Is that good?
So many ways. You guys are so similar in so many ways, and she's quite a bit younger than I am. So, and with her dad being in the military, we didn't get as close as I was to most of my other cousins. But after meeting you like this and talking with you, I've made a real concerted effort to reach out to her and get to know her better again. And the timing couldn't have been better. Like, she's going through a really bad divorce. She's going through some issues with her son, who was diagnosed as being autistic. She's autistic, and she's got all of these things as well. So there's just so much going on in her life right now. So the timing just was so, I don't want to say perfect, but the timing was really good on this. So,
Wow.
but and I should have done this years ago, but I just hadn't reached out to her the way that I should have. But talking with you and but talking with you, it made me think, I really need to reach out to her. And so I have, and it's been really great, I think, for both of us, because we've kind of rekindled a little bit, because she, like I said, she's quite a bit younger than me. So I always felt like, she's just one of the little kids,
Oh, that's
play
good.
with your Barbie dolls and leave me alone, kind of thing. I really never said that to her, but I do feel like we never really got as close as we could have. So it's been really nice, because you remind me that I need to take that. I mean, she's in another state. I don't see her very often, so and I just wanted to say, and you remind me so much of her, because like just mannerisms and the way that you talk. I'm like, man, you call her.
Mannerisms. Oh, goodness.
But she's dealt with this, her whole life too. Like, we were homeschooled, so we had the benefit of, my mom was our teacher. Like, she knew us inside and out. She knew our strengths and our weaknesses, and she worked the curriculum to help us. Stephanie went to a public school, and they could care less. And she had an IEP the whole time, but teachers would say in front of her, well, she's not capable. It's not worth spending the extra time to make sure she understands. It's not worth spending the extra time to understand her, because she's just not capable of keeping up. And so she's fought for every step of the way her whole life, just to be given a chance to prove herself. And things are harder for her. So she's had like a double fight the whole time, like she's got to fight everything, herself, her own mind, and all of the naysayers. So
well, did you read IDIC includes me?
I need to get her to give it a shot, but
I was called
Yeah.
stupid in my first week of grade 1. I think I was only 5. I think I was 5 because I went to kindergarten at 4. Was there early? I was called stupid by my teacher for being bad at cutting stuff out.
at 5? Wow,
I was kept after school.
that's
That's
crazy.
not even in the essay, but that's a story. And my mom had to come to the school and give the teacher. She was like, "Did you do your best, Heather?" "Yes, mommy." And she gave that teacher royal hell. And I went to 6 different elementary schools.
Oh, dang.
I was not diagnosed then, but I was eventually misdiagnosed as ADD. The proper diagnosis that I've got now didn't come till my 20s.
And I think part of that is just as a society, we don't understand. So we made mistakes all the way through, but telling a child that they are incapable of learning is so wrong. It's just wrong. It really is. So
You guys, this is apropos of nothing, but I'm fading, so
Oh, yes. Should we wrap up or do you want to keep talking? I don't want to make everybody
well,
tired.
I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm really
I'm
tired.
sorry.
So no, it's not. It has nothing to do with you guys. I lately have been having these moments. Clearly, even when I got a relatively full night of sleep, because I did last night, unlike most nights, where I'm sitting here reading or whatever, and I can't keep my eyes open. So I just need to lay down for a while, and I'm sure I'll be fine later. So
But,
it was
okay,
lovely
so
seeing you.
we will wrap up. Just here's some advice for the week. Remember your worth. Don't let situations define you. Don't become the monsters that you survive. Invest in doing good, feeling good about yourself. Assimilate kindness, love, compassion. Even if people are difficult to love, they are not impossible to love. And that includes yourself when you're having a difficult time. Don't forget to love yourself as much as possible.
Thank you, lady.
Feel good, live long and prosper.
Ditto.
Love you.
wrong one. I did the wrong one, but
You're fine.
that one works too. So
Bye.
bye.
Feel better. Anyway, did you want to talk some more?
I'm sure if you up to it.
How are you feeling?
Actually, not bad. I mean, it is what it
Tell the
is.
truth.
Well, I mean, it's rough because
Then you need to go to bed.
well,
go to
I mean, I
sleep.
can't sleep. I can't sleep. So that's, I mean, it's not like a tired thing. It's I try to stay busy enough, keep my mind busy enough to not think about everything that I've lost, because
I'm sorry.
he took my whole Star Trek collection. It's like, this is not the first time, but it's gone. So I'm there's a few pieces in there that were a little more special than others, and so I try not to think too much about when I lost. It's just stuff. I keep telling myself that it's just stuff. But it hurts. I mean, he's my son, so it hurts that he acted that way. But and then it's kind of just the unknown. I want to know what's happening. I'm not completely type A personality, but I definitely lean that direction in areas. So being able to say it's out of my hands, there's nothing I can do, is difficult. I need to get better at that, but
I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, I'm getting there. Like, my blood pressures went from being 198 or 200 or 220 over 100 plus to 140, 150 over, 90 something. So I'm working on it, like mentally, like, so, because that's enough to give you a stroke right there.
Yeah, don't do that.
I'd like not to. So it's just, a lot that I'm trying not to think about. So, and I sent my mom with my laptop because where I was at with that guy that would just walk into my room, go through my things, I was worried about my laptop. So I sent it with her. So I'm here without my Star Trek novel that I started. So, well, not really a novel, more like a short story. I can't even work on that. I guess I could grab some paper and pencil and do it the old fashioned way, but I don't know. I'm just sitting here trying not to think about too many things and focusing on writing recipes, and Star Trek is about the only thing to keep my mind off of everything else. So
You could, oh shoot, I was gonna post the fanfics for you, wasn't I? I forgot, I got sick.
don't stress about it, because you can always do it later.
Yeah, I can grab them. I can grab them when we're done this.
My mom has so many pictures, it's not even funny. When I say boxes and cabinets and closets full, I'm not joking. But as we go through her things, somewhere there's a picture of me in high school wearing the Star Trek original series yeoman's costume that I made.
That's amazing.
I mean, if we can find it, you will be amazed. One, I was like quite a bit heavier than I am now, but I'm truly impressed with myself. It actually looked really good. It is longer than regulation because I was very self-conscious about that, but
Yeah.
I would love to find it. I wish that I looked like I looked when I first thought I was fat. But man, somewhere there's a picture of my first Star Trek convention, George Takei, all of that, and I would love to just, see it again. You should have seen me and Nate when we went to that first convention. It was the first one for both of us. Here we are, two teenage kids. Neither one of us had ever been in Oklahoma City proper without our families, because this was downtown Oklahoma City, big hotel. Neither one of us had ever been in a hotel. We didn't know what we were doing. We got dropped off at the door with our tickets, and we were lost. Like, there were people, cosplay all around us, actors around us. We were just a couple of country bumpkin kids that had no clue. I am sure that it was funny. And in fact, when we got there, there was a group of Klingons that had ridden their motorcycles, and they clearly knew the other people, and they were joking around, and they're like, oh, well, we just went warp 8 the whole way here. I guess they had been staying at a different hotel or something, but they started out of the same place. And they're like, oh, well, we just went warp 8. They're like, well, what would you have done if the cops pulled you over? And they're like, what's a cop? Like, they stayed in character the whole time. So it was really cool.
Yeah, my mom and I believe my first convention was in 2013. Like my first convention ever. I didn't really get to do that when I was younger, but it was my birthday. This little entertainment expo with Marina Sirtis was in my city, and I knew about it, and I begged my mom to like let me go, and I dragged my mom to it, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's your birthday," like Marina, and she gave me and my mom photos for free, and I was wearing my blue my blue Trek uniform.
Oh,
And there
how
was this guy from the local paper there, and we ended up on like the second page of the paper 2 days later.
that is so cool. You know, she was supposed to be in Oklahoma City. It was either a day or two after the Oklahoma City bombing, and she dropped out last minute.
Mhm.
And I was so more heartbroken than anything else because I was just so looking forward to that. But yeah, she was supposed to be here. And I mean, I don't know whether it was her decision, some publicist or manager or whatever, but they decided that, you know, it was like a day or two after the bombing and they didn't think it was safe.
Yeah, that sucks.
So I missed out on seeing her by that much, and man, I was so excited for that. But it didn't work out. So
Oh, you look sleepy.
it's the clouds going through the window make the room get dark and then light and dark and then light. And every time it gets dark, I don't know if you can see the light changing behind me because
I
it's coming
can't.
from the window.
But are you getting tired?
No, I wish.
You
I'd like to sleep. Like really just sleep. But it's not working out real well in my favor.
Mm.
And part of that is my fault because I am here all night. Sorry if I'm making you tired, but all it took was one time in the clouds and I'm messed up. But I sit here and I watch Food Network all night long. And then I get into the recipes and I talk to the TV and I'm like, no, why would you do that? That's so stupid. Especially like chopped and stuff. So I'm like, why would you put this sauce on it? You're gonna make it soggy. No, don't do that. So yeah, I talk to the TV.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I used to make fun of my brother because he used to talk to the TV like when Dallas Cowboys played. I used to tell him, you know, they can't hear you, right? Like, for real. And then when I was playing volleyball, he used to walk up and down the line on the volleyball court, yelling at the players like he was the coach, even though he was not. I used to make fun of him for that too. And then I'm sitting here watching people cook, go, no, you can't do that. You've got to wait until the end. And, you know, don't put the parsley in yet. It's going to turn brown. Yeah, so really, I bring some of that on myself.
Yeah. Should I let you go so you can rest?
Well, I'm gonna work on my at some point. I want to do like when I get out of here and into someplace else to live, like a open house thing with Star Trek recipes.
Mm.
We'll see.
It sounds fun.
I know we did that once before. Like we had gack made out of spaghetti and kinds of fun stuff. But I really want to do that, like make because there's Star Trek cookbooks, but there's like a whole website of like Bajoran foods and Klingon foods and how to make something that looks like those foods. I think I'd rather go Bajoran, but you know, not really big on the idea of eating something that looks like a live worm, even if it's not really a live worm.
That sounds amazing.
Just not my thing, but so where's Anthony?
He's at a top secret location doing something top secret.
Secret mission time.
Yeah.
Well, I hope all is well.
Oh, he's fine. He's just doing something fun in real
Well, I
life.
hope it's fun.
It is.
Well, that's always good.
I'm the one that told him about it, so I know exactly what he's doing.
I gotcha. Well, maybe he'll decide to share when he gets back.
Oh, maybe.
So, because there's like 3 different Star Trek clubs that I know of that's going to be at the medieval thing right down the street from where I am right now. They're doing a like on the invitation it says that they're using the Guardian of the Galaxy to go back in time to the medieval times on Earth. So there's going to be like 3 full Star Trek clubs there. And I'm so jealous.
That sounds great. Like, it would be nice to go to an event, like as a writer, as an actor, or even something like this. But, it costs money to do that. We do not have that.
Yeah. I not only don't have the money, I don't have a way to get there or the health to like be there. So
Like, I don't even know the policies and procedures behind even organizing something like that.
well, I try okay, so I need to get you in touch with Captain Jim Landalis because we were trying to organize a fundraiser. Like he's really good friends with the Gorn captain and a Klingon captain, and he's in touch with like the USS Oklahoma and the USS Aaron Eisenberg, and like he has a lot of contacts, and I think it would be so cool to do something like centralized. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go, somebody's going to have to travel, but
I don't know.
think it-
Like, I just would like, even if it was just as a writer promoting my essays, something simple like that, or even as an actor that's been in a fan film, which I have done.
well, I just lost her name. Amy Shimmerman, do you know her?
Nope. I
She
met-
is why did I just lose his first name? The guy that plays Quark.
Armin.
Armin Shimmerman. She is his niece.
Oh, well, I took 2 Shakespeare courses from him over Zoom, and he's very pleasant.
He seems like it, but he's very into like fundraising and stuff. So I was really hoping to be able to use the contact information that I have for Amy to see if we could like get an event together and do something, because he does he autographs stuff and sells
Mhm.
stuff. So if I could get a few more people to jump on there and just donate an item to auction off to raise funds, so I'd love to do something like that. So I just need to, I've organized big events. It's just a matter of like doing, because it is a lot of work. But I think that would be so fun to get some of the different clubs to join together and just do something. Like even if we did like a costume contest or something. I'm sure we could get a few people to come do photo ops, autographs. And I'm sure if we could get 1 or 2 people on board, that they would know how to contact people. I would hope. I don't know, like in my last club, one of the guys was friends with one of the makeup artists on Deep Space Nine, I think it was. It's either Deep Space Nine or Voyager, but I think it was Deep Space Nine. And he came out and like showed us how to do the whole Klingon thing, which was really cool because he brought the prosthetics they really use, which was mind blowing. But I don't have that contact anymore. I mean, that was that's a long time ago.
That would be interesting to be involved in. Yeah.
But I'll bet we could do something. But I mean, still, people have to travel. They have to get a hotel, plane tickets. I mean, there's still the money aspect. But it sure would be fun. I would love to like be in a room full of a whole bunch of Trekkies again, and just like, we haven't had a Star Trek convention in Oklahoma in so long. There's been a few sci-fi things, a few Comic Cons, but not a Star Trek thing. So
Well, I know the what's it called, mission, the mission thing is in Seattle next year, and Washington's cheaper for visiting. Because my mother's from Washington. My mother's from Washington, so I've been there at least 5 times.
yeah, I've never been,
Nice.
but
It's not till May 2023, I believe.
maybe the cancer will be like not an issue then. Maybe I could go.
And we could all get like an Airbnb,
That would be so fun.
and it would save us all some money.
Exactly. We would just have to remember to sleep at some point so that we would have the energy to meet everybody.
Yeah. Or
But oh man, that would be so much fun.
it would, like, it would be cheap, and if it were in a hotel, we could just get rooms on the same floor or something. I don't share rooms for personal reasons with people I'm not related to.
No. Everybody needs a certain level of privacy here.
I literally tried sharing a hotel room in my first year of going to a Trek convention, like a Vegas convention, and I regretted it. My mental health took a dive.
Yeah.
I'm welcome to visitors. I'm welcome to visitors.
It doesn't work out more often than it works out.
Yeah.
But my Aunt Kim lived in Washington for a long time, so maybe she could point us in the right direction. She doesn't live there anymore, but she lived there for a long time. She might have, I don't know, advice, ideas. Doesn't hurt to ask, right? Worst case scenario is always no. So
that's true.
Sorry, I'm watching the birds outside.
That's okay. We can be done. It's okay.
But there's a wheat field right across from me, so I'm watching them do their.
I may move this to this time for a while and see how it goes, because people seem to respond to this time. So
I mean, to me, it was a lot easier because, like I said, Friday is Shabbat, so
yeah, we don't want to disrupt occasions.
But it wasn't bad, and I don't mind Sundays. Sunday got more votes.
Sunday is my spiritual day. Sunday morning is my spiritual day.
I gotcha. Hey, Saturday's
But we'll
good.
just take it day by day and or week by week, and we'll see.
Either way, I mean, I'm just happy to see people.
We're happy to see you. Keep it that way. You
Hey,
better fight this crap with all you got.
I am. I don't expect to get any like support or anything, especially from my kids, which yeah. I
Oh,
will
well,
be
I'll be your
eating.
surrogate kid.
Okay. Because I will be eating my feelings tomorrow. All I wanted for Mother's Day was to go to this barbecue place, and that ain't happening, so
Oh, well, happy early Mother's Day.
that's okay. It's all right. I'm gonna sit here and enjoy my little nachos and
Okay. Well, I love you. I'm glad you came.
all right. Well, you have a good. I hope you feel better. Sorry.
Oh,
you
it's
can't
starting
like-
to feel better. This is the nature of endometriosis. It kind of takes minutes.
I forgot that my friend Bethy has been struggling with that for many years.
It takes
So
minutes. I've had 2 surgeries for it.
she's only had one that I know of, but
Yeah.
it can be rough. I'm sorry. I wish I had better advice, but I don't.
Just, I push through it and I live long and I try to prosper and I run this and this is good.
Hey, we're here for you. If there's any little thing we can do,
Thank you.
I don't think there is, but hey, if you think of something, you let us know. So, all right. Well,
All
I'll
right,
talk to
take
you
care.
later. All
Take
right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all for coming to today's meeting. Live long and prosper.